know that some people might have to leave, so I'm going to start recording right now.
Great.
I am so thrilled and appreciate so much that we have the incredible, awesome Ted McDonald as our guest speaker today. Really, I mean, I took a class, if I don't know if you remember or not, but we were on top of a mountain at Tony's wedding.
I do remember that. Yeah, that was not long ago. That was not a year ago.
I know, and it was so incredible. You're such a great instructor, and I really was affected by that class. That was just really, really great.
Oh, excellent. I appreciate that.
Oh, well, I appreciate you doing what you're doing. And just to give a little bit background on Ted McDonald, he is an endurance athlete. We were just talking about him mountain biking up at 12,000 feet, which is a task in itself. For me to just walk in that altitude is just incredible. Of course, a yoga teacher, a blogger, an entrepreneur, an adventurer athlete. And you are educated in 2 styles of yoga, which I hope you can tell us about, because I myself get a little confused on the styles of yoga. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce everyone, Ted McDonald.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you go. All right. Hi, guys. I'm Ted. Thanks, Anne, for having me here. And you may have muted me. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Okay,
but if it turns out I'm actually not talking and I notice my neighbor's kids screaming in the back, then I'll just mute myself. But there's nothing really I can do while I'm talking. So they usually only scream for a little bit and then they're okay, I guess, once they chain them up. No, just kidding. So anyway, the different styles of yoga I can kind of talk about, since Anne, you sort of led into that question. So nowadays what most people know as kind of vinyasa yoga really is sort of an umbrella underneath a bigger umbrella that would be hatha yoga. So this can be a whole long, full day discussion about different styles of yoga, because there's Ashtanga Yoga. The 2 in my bio that you read was Ashtanga Yoga and Iyengar Yoga. So Iyengar is a specific kind of yoga practice that's where you're moving from pose to pose, and it's very specific, and you're holding a pose for a longer period of time, and they're telling you to do such things as like pull your muscle to your bone. Like it gets really, really, and you're like, I'm pulling my muscle to my bone. And they're like, no, you're not. But it gets really specific in some of the movements. Ashtanga, on the other hand, is a little bit less specific in the poses, but it is very specific in the sequence of poses. So a lot of what you'll see in the 3-week retreat, for instance, is kind of based on the Ashtanga practice. So if you decided to become a full Ashtangi, is what they call it, someone who studies Ashtanga, who practices Ashtanga Yoga, you would go through what's called the primary series. Once you completed the primary series and you were fluent in the primary series and you could make your body into all the different pretzels that is the primary sequence, you would go to the secondary sequence, and then the 3rd sequence and the 4th sequence. Most people will never even get to the 3rd sequence or the 4th sequence. So what we've done, as far as North Americans and kind of Westerners, when yoga as we know it now sort of came here, I guess the first person that sort of brought it here was this guy Paramahansa Yogananda in 1893. And there's a great book called The Autobiography of a Yogi. If you want to get really kind of deep and geeky into it, he's from India, came over and did all that. But it didn't come as we know it now. It came later by this guy Iyengar. So BKS Iyengar, he died at 92 or 93. And the guy was doing full back bends. I mean, at 90 plus years old, which is incredible. And then he and this other guy, Patabi Joyce, he brought the Ashtanga style over to America. And then there was another guy, Desikachar, who brought what's called Vini Yoga. So nowadays we kind of know those 3, Iyengar, Ashtanga, and Vini Yoga. Now there's also Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga. It could go on forever and ever. But what we know and kind of so that stuff, you could just throw all that away for the moment. because really what the 3-week yoga retreat is about just kind of introducing the basics of the poses, the breath, and a little bit of kind of sequencing it all together. We don't really do much meditation in there. The history of yoga goes back so far, but yoga is what they call an 8-limbed tradition, you could say. There's the yamas and the niyamas and asana and pranayama and pratyahara and dhyana and samadhi, and there's all these things. And basically what that all means is there's like, morals and ethics and breath and movement and meditation and self-study. So you're reflecting. And so it's kind of a, big tradition. But we don't really go into all that sort of stuff because we felt like in all our creative meetings leading up to it that the opportunity for us to really reach the widest group of people was to really make it basic and to really make it for beginners, because so many people have heard of yoga. Obviously, it's gotten so popular, but a lot of people kind of had a little bit of fear, or not fear necessarily, but just like, it's not really for me. It's this weird thing off to the side. It's like, the dark cousin or whatever. So, so what we decided to do is just cut out all that sort of stuff and make it these basic movements. And so far, I don't know if you guys were following along in the group there, but Beachbody put together a Facebook group, 3-week yoga retreat Facebook group. It's a public group you can join. And today actually starts the 3rd week. So that will be my week. And so we started September 5th. Vitas taught the first 5 days, and then Faith teaches on Saturday, Sunday. Elise taught the second 5 days, which was last week, and then Faith Saturday, Sunday. And then I come in today, teach the next 5 days, and then Saturday, Sunday is Faith again. And that's your 21-day program. And the main idea really was to provide people with a foundation so that they felt comfortable going into a yoga studio and actually, feeling comfortable understanding the poses. What is Warrior 1? What is Warrior 2? And these are all basic stuff that come from both that Iyengar and Ashtanga. So it's all kind of derivatives of that. And I'm sure you've seen, somewhere around crazy people doing super flexible stuff and getting their legs behind their head and all kinds of weird things. And that can be part of the yoga practice as well if you decided to really go in. I mean, I started practicing when like almost 20 years ago now. I can't believe it. I think it was like 96 or 97. But I took my first yoga class and I was dripping sweat. I couldn't believe, and I was an athlete, right? Growing up, I played football, baseball, lacrosse. I grew up in New York and did all the things that, people do and on Long Island. And when I started this, I was like, wait a second, I'm supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to be able to hold my own body. And I was dripping sweat, shaking. I couldn't believe it. But at the end, it felt like a big sigh of relief from any kind of stress. And at the time I was kind of going through, I had started this business that just kind of, imploded. And I just was not in a good place in my life. And this all of a sudden just shifted my perspective. And I had this great sigh of relief. And I was like, you know what? It's going to be okay. Like it's not going to change. Like the problem didn't go away, but it just shifted my perspective enough to make me go, you know what? There's something here. Like I really felt like I could do yoga forever because it felt like a physical, spiritual, emotional, mental cleanse all in one. It just felt like, if you're like a dirty rag, you're kind of wringing out all the dirt and toxins and stuff in my body and mind. That's what it felt like. And so I think ultimately as, the 4 teachers and the creative team at Beachbody, I think that's what we wanted to provide for people is like the basics. So it's user friendly. We're not scaring anybody by doing any kind of crazy things. And or at least we hope we're not. and then we can grow from there. So it seems like I don't know if Ann, this or any of you guys, but we found out that in the first week there were over 12,000 people a day doing it. So they feel like I haven't heard numbers since then, but they were totally blown away. It was the #1 program on Beachbody On Demand, and Carl has said it's his. Like I found out actually yesterday. Carl Deichler, the CEO, was like, this is, one of my favorite programs. And so it's great because now they're doing an infomercial for it, and they're just going to keep promoting it. And we love that. And I can tell you that they've also wanted the four of us to start creating some more programs. So it's great. So there'll be more stuff coming, and I don't know exactly when they're going to release it or how they're going to release it, but I do know that it'll go on to Beachbody On Demand for sure. And so so we're looking forward to all of that. I don't know if they're going to do like a follow-up program that's just like a in itself, but the 3-week retreat will live in Beachbody On Demand. I think Carl said it's eventually going to become a premier thing. So I know Ann, you and I talked about kind of coaches and how to relate or how to kind of get people on the program. And I think I would say one way is to say, look, it's eventually going to, like by the end of this year, I think he said in one of his posts, Carl was saying that they're going to make it a $99 product. And if you're a Beachbody On Demand customer now, it will stay in your member library. But once they make it a product, then it will become a premier thing that you'll have to actually pay extra for to get it into your library. So I think that's for sure a motivational reason to get on there now. And I think, they're probably doing that to get more people onto Beachbody On Demand, I would think, But anyway, back to the yoga itself. I think that the main thing for me is, like I said, it was physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, all in one. And so I stopped when I first started doing yoga. I stopped doing everything else. Stopped going to the gym. I stopped running. I stopped lifting weights, and I just did exercise on a regular basis. All that, and I stopped, and that's where I gained a lot of flexibility. So for a guy, I'm pretty flexible. I mean, I'm still not nearly as flexible as some guys and a lot of women that I see, but for most guys, I'm fairly flexible. And as an athlete, that's really not a common thing. Sometimes I'll be at a race or whatever, and I'll do my little stretches, and people look at me like, whoa, like this guy's super flexible, But it's just because I've kept it up. It's because it's been consistent for me, which is, I think, one of the things that I really want to get across is that even though it's a 3-week retreat, and I know a lot of people will go through P90X on a regular basis and do it again, over again, over again, over again. I've done my 3rd round of P90X or, whatever it is. And I know Beachbody obviously is creating more and more programs and tools for coaches to help them provide. And I talked to Mark Briggs, and I assume Mark. A lot of you guys, I assume, know Mark too. And he was like, Beachbody On Demand is so good because now you can go to a client and essentially I can say, look, on Monday, do, chest and back from P90X. And because you might be sore or you have an injured leg or whatever, on Tuesday, I can now say, go do, Faith's Relax Day on Tuesday because it's super chill. And you can combine all these programs to get somebody into a thing. So that's kind of great because you can create a unique program for every individual person. And you can just, I don't know. I mean, from I have my yoga studio here in Malibu, and I see private clients as well, both online and in person. And so, just thinking about that from like personal trainer point of view would be like you just create a spreadsheet for somebody, a simple spreadsheet, and then you can tell them what to do. And I think that's a great way to work with people who are, unclear. I mean, it's great because Beachbody has these programs that are just plug and play. You can say, here you go, do, Country Heat or Size or, 21-day fix or whatever it is. But if you wanted to mix it up a little bit and vary it, I think that's a great opportunity for people. And now with yoga, you have something, to me, that actually is the perfect complement to anything you do. So I've seen a lot in the Facebook groups, and people are asking, oh, is anybody doing anything else in addition to the 3-week yoga retreat? And a lot of people are. I mean, there was a whole little, stream of people saying, oh, I'm doing this, or I'm doing that, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. And I think it's great because for me, like yesterday, I just did the Malibu triathlon here. There's a short sprint triathlon. And, but I'm still doing this. I'm actually following along the 3-week yoga retreat too. But then I also do my own yoga, and I'll have clients that I'll do some yoga with. And so for me, it's just become part of my, everyday life. I mean, there are days that I don't do it. But today was not one of those days. So anyway, I think that there's a lot of opportunity there because it's also, like I said, the kind of program that you can couple with other programs. And for me as an athlete, so you mentioned that I'm an endurance athlete. So what does that mean? Well, to me, an endurance athlete is any kind of event that's over 3 hours, right? So a marathon, I mean, even a marathon would be over 3 hours. Hello. It's my little 7-month-old baby just poked her head outside there. Here, hold on, you guys. She can make a little appearance for a moment. This is Madison, everybody. Say hi, Madison. Can you say hi?
Hi. Wave.
She just woke up from a nap. Yeah, she's smiling.
Oh, look at her laughing. Hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah.
Oh, she is adorable.
That's very cute. Hey, bye.
Let's see her do a yoga pose now.
Yeah, exactly. There was a happy baby pose where we were doing a little stretch, Oh, wow. Someone said she has a Madison. She's 18. Gail said that. Gail, that's my future. Madison, this Madison will be 18, but I don't want to go there yet. I don't want to think about it yet. Anyway, so for as an endurance athlete, for me, so much of what I do, so the fact that I continue to do what I do, I feel like is, 50% nutrition, 50% yoga. I mean, the yoga is really what allows my body to keep going. So I just did this triathlon. It was short for me, half-mile swim, 18-mile bike ride, 4-mile run. So it took me an hour and 40 minutes roughly. And so that's not that big of a deal. For me, it's a huge deal, by the way. I have a friend, it took her 3 hours to do it yesterday. She was so afraid to go in the ocean. And it's so funny because so many people are afraid to go in the ocean because they're afraid to be eaten by sharks. But she is like, I have no fear of sharks. Her fear was she's not super fit and she trained a little bit. And she said her fear was that coming in from the swim after she went out into the ocean. Basically, it's kind of a rectangle. You go out to a buoy and then you cross over 2 buoys and then you come in. And her fear was being able to swim in, that she would just be totally exhausted, lose energy, and drown. That was her fear. And so I helped her and we got into the ocean. And I said, look, let's just be in the ocean for a minute. Let's just relax and be in the ocean and hang out. So I got her a little bit more comfortable and it was so good for her just to do that. But the point is, for her, that's a 3-hour event. That's a huge event. It's an endurance event. Now for me, I've been doing, my first one was this particular race back 16 years ago in 2000. Also, my first marathon was in 2000. So I done in the 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, I started doing adventure racing. And adventure racing is essentially multi-sport races. That's mountain biking, kayaking, trail running, navigation. So, but you're doing 24-hour races. So you'd start a race at 6:30 in the morning and then you go until like 2 o'clock the next day in the afternoon. So it'd be a 30-hour race, just nonstop. So you're not obviously sprinting the whole time, but you're going as fast as you can efficiently. And so for me, the hour and 40-minute race is not that, like I've been there, I've done that. I love it. It's fun. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as much of an endurance race for me. It's more of a sprint. So in addition to that, in November, I'll be doing, I'm not sure, I can't commit right now to whether it's going to be a 50-kilometer race or a 50-mile race. I have a feeling it might be 50 kilometers because I'm just not in as good a shape to do a 50-mile. This will be a run, so it's an ultra marathon. Anything over 26.2 miles is an ultra marathon. It's all in the hills here in Malibu, and it's going to be hard. I've done a 50K in the past, and it took me almost 6 hours to do. So I know that if I do the 50-miler this time, it would probably take me 8 or 9 hours of being on foot up and down the hills and stuff. So in order to do that kind of thing, I don't even think about that kind of thing. For me, yoga is such a huge, huge, huge part of my overall regime. Obviously, nutrition plays a huge role. Sleep plays a huge role. Training plays a huge role. And just wait for that truck to go by. So sleep, nutrition, training, and yoga is part of it, because not just because of stretching. Like that's, someone asked me a while ago, and this might be something that would help people too, is like, well, what is yoga? Like, why can't I just stretch? And I think that one of the main differences between just stretching and yoga is really your mindset. I mean, first of all, you're connecting your breathing to your movements. So that's helping you stay focused. So it's calming the mind a bit as you move and you breathe and you stay present, as opposed to just stretching and going, oh, I'm trying to get my leg up, you know, and you're like forcing the situation, just like you would push a weight or something like that. That's different. If you relax into it and you calm down and you breathe, that's de-stressing. And so it allows your body and your mind to kind of restore to sanity, really. I mean, and restore to balance and homeostasis and all that sort of thing. So that's another, I think, key point for people is in the yoga aspect, is to say, like some people, I was on call with Tracy Morrow, and she said, you know, a lot of people, you know, they just have an opinion about yoga, and they don't want to do it, right? Because she was talking about she has a lot of Christian people in her upline or downline, and so she said a lot of people just don't think it's like a very Christian thing to do, and so for me, I simply said, just forget the whole religion part of it. Just think of it as a body movement exercise. So everybody now wants to do HIIT training, right? High intensity interval training. That's a thing. I mean, that's what 22-minute hardcore is, right? It's 22 minutes of like high intensity interval. It's what P90X is. It's, you know, it's you're doing high intensity interval stuff for X short amount of time, short bursts, but it's body weight. That's one of the things I love about Tony Horton. It's one of the reasons why we work out together and hang out together, is because I don't have a huge interest in building bulk. I don't want, because my love is endurance sports, I want to be light and fast. I don't want to be big and bulky, right? So for me, body weight stuff is key. And that's one of the reasons where yoga, just take out the word yoga and just say, this is just a body weight movement routine exercise. You could call it that, right? So to just break it down a little bit and just to its basics. And so anyway, that's kind of a couple little tips and tricks on how to use it to get anyone started. So I would say like 3 main things. If people are kind of don't really want to do yoga, just say, look, if you have any ideas of what it's supposed to be, just think of it as a body movement exercise. That's right. Simple as that. And then second thing I would say is, you know, regardless of what you're doing, if they're like, oh, well, I love to dance and I want to do size, or I love to, you know, I want to do 21-day fix, or I want to do, you know, 22-minute hardcore, just say, well, this is only going to make that particular program, or whatever it is, your program, it's only going to make that program better. So it's only going to make you feel better while you're doing that, because you're going to have a bigger range of motion, right? We work on squats. Vitas in the first week does the squat. And so that's so important. So now go back to your bear crawls and 22-minute hardcore. They're going to get better because you did the yoga, right? That's going to help your squat. So for me, it's, again, they're only going to make the other programs better. And then at the same time, the people who are just like, oh, well, I'm injured. You have Faith, right? Who does her take 10, super chill, super relaxed. She has her relaxed classes too. And they could stick with Vitas's too. You know, it's a great thing. Oh, and here's the other thing too that I wanted to mention that I thought of was, I know a lot of people like to do the intense programs, and that keeps them away from doing the ultimate reset. Part of our creative talks in the beginning, before we even shot this whole program, when it was all being brainstormed and laid out on the table there, was how long do we do it? Do we do it for 30 days? Do we do it for a week? Do we do it for 3 weeks, or whatever it was? And a lot of people will now couple this with the ultimate reset. So you can still move, because I know the ultimate reset talks for light movement, and people are like, oh, well, I don't want to do it because I still want my cardio or whatever. But if you commit to the ultimate reset and you couple the 3-week yoga retreat with it, to me, that's an amazing combination there. Does that give you some stuff?
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. I really like the idea of the hybrid of taking different programs and creating custom designed programs for your clients. Does anyone on the call do that right now with the Beachbody On Demand? I think that's a real, I know that Mark Briggs does that a lot. He seems to combine programs together. Really good idea. One question that I had for you is, how many times a week should us normal people, not adventure athletes like yourself, be doing yoga, and to get the most out of it?
So if I had a client who came to me here in Malibu and they said, hey, I want to hire you to, come to my house and do something and do some yoga, how often? In fact, I have a guy now he's hurting. So I said, look, if you really want to see benefit from yoga, you have to do minimum 3 times a week, right? Minimum 3 to 5 times a week. Like if you want to see, and I'm telling him to do this with an hour-long session. So that's another thing that's great about the 3-week retreat. If people will actually do it every single day, you will for sure see changes. And then after you did that, if you didn't want to just mix it in, on a regular basis again and again and again and again and over again, then I would say minimum 3 days a week. I would say that would be minimum, because you're going to notice these changes. And then like what happened to me was, I did a yoga class. I totally loved it right off the bat, started subscribing to magazines and reading books and just loved it. And the guy was not spiritual. The guy was like, he would curse in class and he would look at somebody else and he'd be like, don't look at the person next to you. Like, just because they can get their head to their knees doesn't mean you should be. You got to pay attention to your own body. And it was so practical for me. And he was just a dude and he spoke to me. It just felt that way. But it was, I just loved it more and more and more, because I started to get this body awareness for myself. Actually, I was smoking cigarettes at the time I started doing yoga, and it helped me quit smoking. That's right. 20 years ago. I can't believe it. But, I just remember feeling so good after yoga that I didn't want, obviously I wasn't smoking during, and that class was an hour and a half, hour, 45 minutes. And I didn't want to smoke leading up to the class because I knew I was going to be working hard. And I felt so good that I didn't want to smoke after. So I remember thinking it was like a 2.5 hour window. So I was like, well, gosh, if I did 5 yoga classes in a day, I wouldn't smoke, And I never had to do that, but that was in my head. I thought I can use this to quit smoking. And then I wound up doing it a little bit later. But anyway, so I would say 3 to 5 times a week is especially if you have the 10 minutes or you have the 30 minutes, all 30 minutes, that's for sure amazing,
Great. Looks like Terry has to leave. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's great to see you, Terry. Anyone else have a question for Ted right now? We have Gail here. Her husband is actually an Iron Man.
All right.
So, let me unmute you, Gail. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Good.
That's actually what I was going to bring up, because Scott's not on the call, but I do have a question, because he is entering into his phase of non-training. He's going to be doing another Ironman in a couple of weeks. And so he really knows what to do, because his whole journey started with P90X before he ever even became a triathlete.
Cool.
And he is the first one to talk about yoga to people and tell them how incredibly important it is for endurance athletes. But now he really wants to get the people that he trains with on board with what they're going to do in the off season. So my question is, because the mindset of an endurance athlete, how they can't calm their minds and they can't calm their bodies. So is he better off I don't want to sway anybody away from doing the 3-week yoga retreat, because I think it's awesome. But if they have this mindset that they have to keep going and they have to be, pumping iron and doing all these things in the off season, are they better off doing the 3-week yoga retreat as an integration, or are they better off integrating like P90X3 yoga or P90X yoga?
So I would say, I sort of feel like, and this is why I was so excited when people in that Facebook group said, is anybody doing any other programs with it? For me, I for sure would be doing other programs with. I'm getting a little echo there. All right. Can I get that off? Can you still hear me? You can still hear me. Okay. And then say something there so I can make sure I hear you. No, you, Gail. Is it Gail? Oh, you're muted. Oh, okay, now you can. Okay, got it. All right, never mind. But you guys can hear me. Oh, yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Now I can. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so for me, I'm for sure going to be doing yoga with other programs. So it depends on my training, right? So for instance, I'll do harder yoga if I have lighter training, or I'll do lighter yoga if I have harder training. So depending on what's happening now, that they're going into their off season. So I'm basically the guy that they want me to create programs for people like your husband, right? Because so we've already done, I can tell you guys, we've already done a couple different things for this. So there's well, I guess I probably shouldn't say what it is yet, but there's going to be a great program that's coming out that's perfect for athletes after a workout. So it's going to be something that you can still go work out and then just get a great stretch. And there's two of them. There's going to be a 10-minute and a 30-minute. So as far as doing the 3-week retreat, here's the other thing. When you go online, you don't have to do the whole entire thing every single day, every single class. You can jump straight to my week. Or you could stay with Vitas's week, for instance, right? And do that. Or find, because you'll find like some people will resonate with different teachers, which is one of the great things about yoga is so many people are like, oh, I love my yoga teacher. And so there's 4 of us. So you might just, connect with Elise and her way of teaching, or Vitas for that matter, or me for that matter. And so the idea is if they found somebody, then they should just stick with that. I mean, I've been doing pretty much the same kind of yoga for the last 15, 20 years. Because the thing is, after a run, I'm still tight. My body's still tight. When I fold forward, I can stretch my legs. And that's what's happening. So it doesn't need to be different every single day. So like what I would imagine eventually that will happen is people will look at the stuff that's coming out in the future, and they'll say, oh, I love this 30-minute recovery thing. It's great because I'll go out and I'll run 5 miles or 10 miles or 15 miles and I'll come back and I just want to sit and I want to chill and I want to do that. And they'll do that 3 times a week or whatever it is. So you might find one of those within the 3-week yoga retreat that they could pull, you know what I mean? And just say, okay, it's off season. So what would be good, I think, is to, if your husband's on it, then which it sounds like he is, have him go through the program. And then he can recommend to his people, hey, you know what, you should try this, because people are going to say, while they're on their bike ride, they're always chatting it up on the bike ride. And so they're going to say, oh yeah, my back's hurting, or, or my leg's hurting, or, I got a hip problem or whatever. And then he can at least share with them and say, oh, hey, look, you know what? I just, I went through this whole program, and you don't have to go through the whole program, but just take day 4 on week 2 and then do that, because that will help you. Does that help?
Mm-hmm. I posted a question because I don't know if Ann was.
Oh, okay. So I can hear you now. So tell me.
So if he's going to create this hybrid, I create hybrids for people all the time.
Yeah.
So I try to just give them 1 workout a day, because nobody wants to spend more than 30 minutes working out, God forbid.
Right.
So when he's doing this for people in the off season who are used to training, as you know, for hours and hours a day.
Yeah.
So I don't think time is going to be that much of an issue. Do you think that he should help them to integrate certain workouts, maybe your week of workouts, just as daily workouts, or do you think they should always come after something else that's a little bit more intense just because of what they're used to?
Well, so I would say on an off day that it'd be great. So in the 3-week yoga retreat right now, which is what you have to work with, as I said, that will change shortly. But for now, mine are a little bit more intense. The 3rd week, the progression week. I mean, if you're not used to doing yoga, it's all going to be intense, right? Mm-hmm. So even Vitas's beginning stuff is first. But I would say in general, if you wanted to have a little bit of movement, definitely go to the 3rd week for an endurance athlete, because they're used to pounding their body, right? I mean, they're used to like doing that kind of thing. So for sure, have somebody just go straight to the week 3. It's a harder thing, right? Because that's the sell. It's a harder thing. So you're not going to feel like you're doing nothing, because otherwise they'll come back and they'll be like, I tried it and it was like, I got bored for the first 10 minutes. And so they need to start moving on a regular basis right away. And that's like what you're referring to, right? So get them moving right away. And then for 30 minutes, it just feels great. It's just a great little thing to do. I mean, it really depends on their training, whether they're going to add that or only do that. I would say for me, for instance, if I'm in the midst of training, like right now I'm training for this race in November. And so I'm running probably 3 to 5 days a week, but I do my plyo 1 day a week. I do, I go to Tony's and I'll do a plyo class that we all do. And then I'll do yoga 3 to 5 days a week. And so I mix it in there. Now on a big long run day, my yoga is going to be just long holds, no flow. But on like tomorrow morning, I'll wake up and I'll go do a 45-minute run. And then actually later on in the day, I'll do a good hour-long yoga session.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good advice. I'm totally going to tell.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And by the way, I mean, Anne has my info. You can find me, on social media. Just feel free to send me. I'd be happy to chat with them. And I mean, it's what I love to do. So it sounds like, you guys too. So, and I'm actually doing an Ironman next April, supposedly.
Oh, where are you doing it?
I think I'm doing Texas.
Oh, awesome. That's so cool. I'll tell him. Yeah, he's a big fan. I told him that I was getting on the call. He goes, Ted's chair.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Said, yeah, he's the flow man.
That's right. I know that.
How many Ironman has Scott done?
So he has now done 3. Boulder was his 3rd in August, and he just did a half actually in Atlantic City just yesterday.
Yeah, my friend did it too.
And yeah, it was a really big race, like 2,800 athletes. And unbeknownst to everybody, because Boulder was so difficult for him, he did cross the finish line, but it was really, as he called it, a blank show. I can't say it. But his coach encouraged him to sign up for Maryland, which is in 2 weeks. And he just announced it on Facebook today. So
is that half? Is that a half or full?
That's a full.
Oh, really?
That'll be his 4th. And and then, I can't say for sure, but we're hoping we're going to take a breath after that. Wait, did you hear my wait? We're hoping.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, this will be my first Ironman. It's funny because I've raced for, like I said, 24, 30 hours. So the time is not the thing for me, but it's just, I've never done an Ironman. I've just always wanted to do it. And actually, we'll see with Beachbody, I think, because the Performance line sponsors.
It's so funny because in Boulder, we were hanging out. I'm blanking now. This is my old brain. With Carolina. I lost it. Who I've known for so many years because I've been a coach forever. And so we walked up to her. I'm like, oh my God, it's Carolina Shakeology. So it was really fun. Unfortunately, he ended up in the medical tent after. Otherwise, I would have been at their tent for a while. But yeah, happens. But it won't happen. Yeah. Sure, you'll be awesome.
Right. Well, good. Yeah. Well, anyway, feel free, to find me and I'll be happy to chat with him. It'd be great.
Great. Thanks for the information. I appreciate it.
For sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Maybe Scott can give you some tips, right, on the Ironman.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, together for sure, Gail.
Love it.
Great question. Does anyone else have a question for Ted? You can raise your hand, unmute yourself. Esther, you were very excited to get on this call tonight.
Well, that's because I just like doing yoga, and I love the fact that we have this on-demand thing that I can add to all my clients to do together with the workouts. I wish that they all did yoga right after each and every single workout, but it doesn't happen that way. So this is really exciting because there's all these different levels and anybody can do it, which is what I like. They don't have to be like, oh, I'm not a yoga master. And I'm like, it's okay. You can go in there. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. It was a much needed program.
Esther, have you been doing did you do all the 3-week retreat, the whole thing?
I've been touching on a little bit of each one of them, only because I have like 3 people right now working out with me every day. So I can't really tweak it that much for myself. But
Yeah.
I've been looking at a couple of them, and that's why I know that everybody's gonna like it, because it has the different levels. Like, this is perfect.
Actually, so that's interesting that you bring that up, because that's something I didn't mention. Every single one, except for Faith Take 10s. Faith takes 10s on the weekend are just her, and they're just super, super chill. But every single other class where there's 3 of us, and it's fun because we're each other's cast, like the teachers are, but there's always a modifier. There's always a modifier, which is great because, there's blocks there and there's straps, and you don't need to go buy blocks or a strap where, you have a towel, you have books, you have, whatever. You can use your Shakeology bottle as a block. You know what I mean? It's just whatever you have. Use a chair. But it's great because you're absolutely right. Any level can do it. No.
Yeah, well, let's just put it this way. I have my kids who do the yoga with me all the time. And when they saw me doing this one, they all ran down to do it with me, because it's not like, the P90X yoga where they're like falling off. This one, they're like sitting there and doing it with me. So
yeah,
cool.
Great.
And
Very
Esther
good.
has 5 children.
Oh,
So that's probably why you really like the yoga, because
Oh, yeah.
it relax your mind too, right? And get away from
Absolutely. But then they follow me anyways. I mean, it's good either way. It's good for them too.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. A pleasure. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Thank you, Esther. Anyone else have a question for Ted? Everybody cool? Okay. All right, Ted, it was great. I can't wait to do all 3 weeks. I've been trying, different ones, and I just love it because I think it was really, really needed in our library of programs. This was really, really needed for us.
I'm super excited about it, and it just seems like, hi, I'm waving at Esther's guy there.
One of her
yeah, one of her 5, exactly. But we're so happy that people have taken to the program, and it's just really great, and it's just nice. I mean, like I said, the first time I did it, I had this experience, and I wouldn't call it like a spiritual experience at all. It was just like, it was just a sigh of relief. And over the time, there's been such great benefit for me, not only physically, which, most of us look at it, well, how can I have the physical benefits? But it just, mentally and emotionally, and anytime I've learned how to deal with stress better, I get less road rage, as right. And so, I mean, it just teaches you how to deal with things better. And I think that's what makes it different than any other exercise program, is that the other stuff is harder. Whereas this is like, you can go harder. I mean, trust me, I have people sitting in a 3-minute chair pose in my class against the wall for 3 minutes. And so it's hard, but the trick in yoga is to relax while it's hard, right? And that mechanism, teaching yourself how to deal with difficulty, is something that you can replicate. And if you do it in a safe environment, like your home or a yoga class or a yoga studio, safe to do there, you work on pushing yourself and relaxing, and pushing yourself and relaxing while you're challenging yourself. Then you take that out into the world. It doesn't matter what comes your way, right? Because there's always stuff that's going to come our way. There's always stuff that's going to happen to us. Life throws us the unexpected all the time. And it's just really never what happens to us. It's how we deal with what happens to us. So I'm super excited that more people get to experience this great practice, and what's helped me so much and continues to. And I hope that we can keep on helping more people. I mean, that's it.
That's great. Thank you, Ted. We so appreciate you doing this for us. It was just fabulous to hear from you, and wish you luck in your future endeavors and your Ironman. You got to let us know how you do with that.
Yeah, for sure. And all my stuff on social media is Teddy McDonald. So teddymcdonald.com, on Instagram, Facebook, all that sort of stuff. So Twitter, all that stuff. So I'm out there. So feel free to reach out, and and hopefully we'll cross paths somewhere in the world soon.
Now let's all do a nice namaste for namaste. Or namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste. Thank you so much, Ted. We really enjoyed you. Everyone, thank you for coming. Okay, good night, everyone. Thanks so much, Ted.
See you soon. Okay.